Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and so we're going to be getting release soon of the quad feature Special Costume Scout with Special Costume Hilda, Diantha, Guzma, and Jasmine. So, okay. This Scout is... okay. I guess we should talk about the characters, or should we talk about the Scout? Because those are two different things. I think the characters have honestly aged decently. I don't think they're nearly not nearly as good as they were back when they initially released, but I also don't think that, like, they're horrible. I mean, they still do have some usage, for sure. Like, Jasmine, still a great support in the Legendary Gauntlet, can definitely do well in the Champion Stadium, Battle Rally, whatever. Only problem with her is that in the Battle Rally specifically, she doesn't have any X-Roll, sadly. I really wish they wouldn't just abandon these old seasonal characters, and that's obviously a bad thing about pulling seasonal characters, is that they pretty much don't get buffs anymore. Like, once they release, they don't get buffs like EX rolls or, like, expanded grids, or Super Awakenings, stuff like that, right? So we're pretty much kind of stuck with how they are at release. Jasmine's still pretty decent. Diantha still has one of the best fighting nukes in the game. It still has good fighting damage. She's still really good. Diantha is surprisingly aged very well. Guzma aged less well, but still decently, I would say. I mean, he can still put out some pretty good damage, for sure. But definitely just, like, nothing compared to a lot of modern or just better fighting characters, or definitely not really better than Diantha. And then Hilda. Hilda's a decent rock character. I mean, definitely not replacing any of the top tier characters, but if you do have her, especially with investment, then you'll probably get some good usage out of her. But for the most part, she's still got a lot of flaws and isn't, like, fantastic anymore, but, you know, again, you can make her work. So the banner itself, you know, not the character list, at least in Diantha's case, Jasmine's case maybe, and maybe Hilda's case, they're all pretty decent characters, Diantha being a great character. Banner still, sadly, is not going to be worth it. We don't have the exact rates pulled up here, but due to historical trends, we know that this banner is going to feature all 4 characters, and it's probably going to be 0.5% rates for each, for a total of 2%, which is bad. Pretty bad at that. The only reason you ever summon on this is if you really just want the characters. That's really it. Of course, it's going to have a regular banner here. Spotlight Present Power-Up. What do you mean Spotlight Present Power-Up? Okay, whatever. Anyway, she does, you know, the banner does have here the 4 characters. It costs regular gems. I mean, it's a normal banner, lasts until the 30th of the month. There is also the ticket banner, which we'll get into that in a second, but there's also this Scout. This Scout is the Tiered Scout. If you do want to summon on this banner and you do want to go for a specific character, the Tiered Scout is your best bet to get that specific character, because it is, I believe, a total of 10,000 gems. I've not counted, but I believe it is 10,000 here, which you get rewards of, like, 10 5-star power-ups, and a ticket here, which I don't think guarantees you one of the characters, but it gives you a 25% chance for one of the 4, so that's something, but you do get to select the character at the end of the Tiered Scout that you want out of the 4. So if you do want to pull one of these characters and you only want one of them, this Tiered Scout is your best option. Well, am I saying that's worth 10,000 gems? No, it's definitely not. But if you are trying to, like, get in and out with the least, you know, collateral damage, then this is definitely your way to do it, for sure. And again, that ticket here, it does give you the ability to pick up one of these characters. I could be wrong, but I'm quite certain that this is a Scout that gives you a guaranteed 5-star, but it only has a 25% chance to be one of the 4 characters. So it is not 25% Hilda, 25% Jasmine, 25% Guzma, and 25% Diantha for a total of 100% chance of one of them. It is all of them share a 25% split rate. So that's what, like 6.25% or something. Yeah, 6.25% each. That's the rate between each of them. It could be, we'll have to see when the banner releases, 25% for all of them, but I don't think that's how it is. I'm quite certain it's not, but if it is, then, you know, cool, right? Either way, whatever. Point is, banner's not that great, and if you want to go for one of them specifically, your best bet is the Tiered Scout, so just keep that in mind, I guess. I guess we'll go ahead and look at the characters as kits. Why not? Diantha was one to release first. She is a good nuking fighting character. She's got good stats, as we can see here. 474 special attack is still really good. The defenses are fine. 724 health, 391 speed. Good stats across the board. She's got Secret Sword, which is a at 3 out of 5, because that's probably the max you're going to invest into her. 176 minimum power, which is pretty strong for gauges. Deals damage based on enemy defense. I always forget if this hits through like Sentry / Wise Entry, or like not hit through it, but hits for the other one. I always forget that. I'm pretty sure this means that for like Wise Entry she'll be fine, but again, I could be fucking wrong. It doesn't really matter. Whatever. She's got move gauge boost here as well, charging gauge by 3. Aura Sphere for 2 gauge, never missing. Whatever. This doesn't have many great effects by itself, but it can have use for gauge management ability. She does have Strike True, raising her special attack by 4, crit by 3, and applying gradual healing. That gradual healing is pretty damn useful, especially in legendary arenas. There's these tiles here mostly have good use in legendary arenas, and you can, of course, use them outside of it, but for the most part, in other content where you're mostly trying to focus on her damage, you're going to be using Secret Sword, just being honest. And again, the training move with the gradual healing is good as well for a lot of content, but also, very notably, Legendary Gauntlet, where she's actually got a form of tick healing. It's very good. And her passives here are Armor Leech, Mind Leech, and Speed Leech. You'll probably remember these from the Ultimate Battle that released yesterday. No, not yesterday. Time of recording this, it was yesterday, but as the time of uploading this, it'd be like 4 or 5 days ago. The Morgan Ultimate Battle. That's when these abilities last became relevant, and the fact that she's able to debuff enemy defense and raise her own defense, debuff enemy special defense and raise her own special defense, and debuff enemy speed with Speed Leech and raise her own speed. So she steals the stats basically of defense, special defense, and speed, which is really, really strong. Those are some good stats to debuff. Defense is obviously enhancing damage and deactivating enemy gimmicks, and also speed, of course, similar case, and activating multipliers and all of that stuff. And she's got the innate nuke of having her defense be raised, the greater the power of her move. It's always good to have it where her stats being raised are dependent upon, instead of having enemy debuffs be dependent upon in most cases, rather, because they could have easily done it based on debuffs, but thankfully, I mean, they didn't, just because it is far easier to have to maximize a nuke by having your stats buffed than it is by having the enemy stats debuffed. At least I believe so. And her nuke obviously enhances all these properties further. I mean, outside of it, her nuke isn't great. Like, at 1 out of 5, her nuke's not great. She doesn't have all these multipliers in the grid and whatever. Her damage is pretty good. I mean, Secret Sword's going to be able to do something, for sure. It's going to be working well under Champion Hop, or Champion Rosa, Champion Bianca, Cygnus Aura Cynthia, all those characters that can apply Fighting Zone or rebuff or whatever. It'll be good. And again, she's got good utility with the debuffs, but for the most part, her nuke is definitely going to be lacking, which is changed in the grid. The grid gives her Brute Wits and Inertia, speed-based multiplier, and special defense-based multipliers. So this is 300% in fighting multipliers. I think they kind of did not realize how strong this was, because this is still really good to this day. I really don't think that they realized how effective this ability is, or having this many multipliers really is, for making Diantha look super strong. Because she released literally back in November of 2021, so October technically, right, but November update, and she's still this strong, which is funny. She's also got Tough Cookie for powering up her DPS options, with more defense is raised, so of course that 176 power Secret Sword is going to be doing some more damage, which is great. She's got Move Gauge Boost, Gauge Refresh 9 if you need even more gauge on using the Gauge Refresh here. Oops. Okay, don't know how to do that. Gauge Refresh, MP Refresh, bleh, whatever. So you get the extra gauges from this. Again, this is if you really, really want the gauge or whatever. And you've got 2 uses of it here. Grand Entry 1, would not really rely on that. Not even if it was Grand Entry 2. I don't think that's necessary. Just pick up Training of NPR. This is far better to pick up than picking up Grand Entry 1 in pretty much any case. You get the gradual healing again from it. You get to max out special attack. That's the best usage you're going to get out of this. She's also got Aura Sphere, Staggering 2. This can enable a lot of content if you get lucky enough. Those 30% flinches are not fun to get, but if you do get them, then those are obviously going to be pretty strong and pretty effective for some content. So being able to land those is great. Train Move Ramp Up. I don't know why they're giving her so many special attack buffing tiles this way, but sure, I mean, it's there, I guess. And that's mostly what Diantha's got. So Diantha's obviously very effective. at doing a very strong fighting nuke with pretty solid fighting damage, and having pretty good utility on top of that with the debuffs, the gauge refresh ability, and the staggering, and her own healing. That makes her pretty good for the legendary gauntlet. Her damage challenge prowess, I honestly don't know. I would have to look at it again, but at least in my case, Diantha couldn't hit fighting 3v1 1 million damage, but I think she could with good luck, or like with a certain play, but her ease of getting it, at least in my experience, not that great. But if you can get it, then obviously, you know, she's going to be good for that. She's going to be relatively solid. I do want to look here to see how many souls does she have. It's as if she was built for Registeel, despite the fact that Registeel wasn't even out at that point. Yeah, 1 EX you can do Registeel, which is pretty good. She's got 7 solos. That's nice. It's pretty good. So that's fair. That's good for Diantha. Again, she's probably the best of all 3 of them, and has just pretty effective character in most content, so for the most part. So that is good. I did also use her in my initial clear of the Palmer Ultimate Battle, so of course she's going to be pretty solid in there too. Just kind of goes without saying. Anyway, moving on. Costume Hilda, a striker character, rock type. Okay, so she was good back when she released, because your rock types were Emmet or Classic Blue, which were good options, but did not rerun, or they had run very recently, rather, in Classic Blue's case, and had not rerun yet. And Emmet didn't rerun until New Year's, and that was a paid gem banner. I don't remember when his actual free rerun was. I think it was actually a year after he initially released. Yeah, I think the first banner that Ingo and Emmet had as a rerun for free was a literal year after, in like June or something of 2022. So it was a good minute between that release and Hilda here. And I think Classic Blue rerun in like March. So Hilda had a good amount of time to be picked up for in that middle area, but she also still had the competition of being around Classic Blue and Emmet. And nowadays, of course, she's got so much more competition, like just fucking Champion Silver, Alt Celine. Those are 2 really good characters. Cygnus Diantha, who can also enhance her, but you know, also outright replace her. I mean, you can run it double Diancie core. That's fun for sure, but it just doesn't mean that she's super effective, or well, the best character for the job. Let me reiterate. Still relatively strong character though. Stone Edge, 110 power here, 3 gauge, crits line more easily. Diamond Storm, this is the main move you're probably going to be using. 4 gauge, 50% chance of raising defense by 2. She's also got X attack here, buffing her attack, and her trainer move buffing her crit and accuracy and speed. So she does have a little bit of gauge, good accuracy. I mean, Stone Edge sucks, that accuracy, and the crit buffs maxing is nice. This is good stuff. And when she mega evolves, she gets, pretty sure, fuel economy. Yeah, she gets fuel economy. So 2 gauge Stone Edge and a 3 gauge Diamond Storm is very nice. That does help out her gauge as well. That's probably one of her biggest issues, is like, I mean, the biggest issues of a lot of rock-type teams, at least back then, would have been gauge. Not anymore, really. But, I mean, she also has a good speed stat. So the fact she can manage gauge pretty well is already good. Pre-Mega, she's got Head Start 1, so if you want to do some sync accelerating stuff with her, you can, especially partnered up with, like, again, Cygnus Diantha or Champion Silver, 2 characters who can do some decent sync acceleration in their kits. You can make that work. She's also got Tough Cookie here, powering up her moves the more her defense is raised, you know, from the Diamond Storm there. And also Swag Bag 1, guaranteeing her raise of defense on using Diamond Storm. So she's got the ability to buff her defense, which is nice, and also use that as a multiplier. So she can actually start doing damage in base. Her stats are not crazy. Her defense being sub 200 is not good, and it does not change upon Mega Evolution. This is probably one of her bigger weaknesses, is just, again, weaker defenses. But the fact that she's able to buff her defense at all is actually really helpful for that, or like mitigating that issue. Her attack is not really that good in base, but, well, okay, it's fine in base. It's not like crazy, but it's fine. But when she Mega Evolves, obviously, you know, 500 attack, that's good. All right, so her attack gets good when Mega Evolving. Her speed is pretty solid. It gets even better when Mega Evolving. 435 speed's good, and 776 health. So her stats all around are about average, if not, you know, on the average low, average high end in some areas, and Mega Evolving does, of course, help her. And upon Mega Evolution, her Head Start 1 turns into Fuel Economy, so she gets extra gauge, or rather, uses less gauge when using her moves. So, strongly move my thing there. Okay. So yeah, that's her base kit. I don't think her base kit is good enough, definitely, to warrant pulling for her. I mean, 1 multiplier is good. I mean, multiplier in base is good, and having her self-sufficiency and buffing her stats and defense and all of that, and also the gauge efficiency is nice, but not really enough to warrant actually, again, pulling for her, or saying that she's got a really crazy kit. Her grit helps, for sure. It definitely gives her a lot of strength in different areas. Diamond Storm ramming speed is good, on top of having Fast Track 9 as a pickup up here in the top left. I don't like how far apart those are, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. Jesus, this chair. She's also got Super Sinker here, applying Super Effective next after using her Sync move. I can see good use in the modern damage challenges for this, but I also think that her damage is just like too low in order to like really be effective there. Like her Sync Nuke damage is too low because she's got Towering Force, Super Sinker, Double Down. Her multipliers are fine. I don't know. Has anyone managed to hit for 1 million with Hilda in the damage challenge? Probably. I'd say they probably have. Just, it's more so the fact that you'll do it because you don't have other options, more so less than the fact that she's like the best option for it, for sure. Anyway. She's got good abilities for on-type damage with Super Sinker and Double Down. Those are probably the two biggest ones there. Having Fast Track here as well for buffing her speed to apply buffs to ramming, Diamond Storm ramming speed here, and also just make her gauge work a lot better for sure. Sync Regen's helpful for applying that gradual healing. A little bit of healing on her is nice. Helps without having to have allies that can do that. Impervious. If you want to try her versus the Morgan Ultimate Battle, go for it. But of course, in general, preventing stat debuffs is also very, very helpful. Lots of stages can do that. And also having abilities like Adrenaline 1, I guess Critical Strike 1 on Stone Edge, and a few other things like some Gauge Refreshes, Trim of NPRs, extra Sync Nodes is going to be decently helpful for making her a bit stronger. So overall, her kit, not terrible. She definitely got the essence of like an older striker character, but at the very least, she does have a little bit of extra utility with being able to buff her defensive stats on her own, apply the Sync Regen to give herself a bit more healing, and still have a pretty decent nuke for today's standards. Definitely not crazy, definitely not great, but definitely, you know, passable in content like Champion Stadium, probably the damage challenge, Rock 3v3 she'll be fine, and definitely, again, in the Legendary Gauntlet, you can get better usage out of those abilities, like the healing and the defensive buffs. So it could be worse. And also the Fast Track is nice to have, too. Guzma. All right. Guzma was pretty funny character. He's focused on missing his moves. He's got Dynamic Punch, which is a 50 accuracy move, 4 gauge, 230 power. We'll just say 217 power because of 3 out of 5, leaving the enemy confused. Okay, cool. He's got X Sure Hit, guaranteeing his next attack will land. Hammer Arm, 3 gauge, 136 power move that lowers his speed by 1, so he's got an actual consistent damaging option too. And he's got his Trainer move, which is really good, by the way. Raises his attack by 6, crit by 3, and lowering his defenses by 1. That does suck a little bit, but you can definitely work around it with a good enough support or like Lucky Skills or whatever. That's otherwise a good Trainer move. Though the self-sufficiency is nice, for sure. And this is where he is focused on missing. Tenacity 3, increasing his physical moves next by 3 when his attack move misses. So the big aim for him is to use Dynamic Punch, miss once, twice, 3 times, and then land the last one with like +6, +9 physical moves next and do a ton of damage. Does that translate to being really good nowadays? Not really. It really doesn't. It's probably just better to use Dynamic Punch as an actual, like, consistent hitting move by buffing his accuracy or something akin to that. Like, similarly to Chuck, right? Like, if we want to look at Chuck as, like, a pretty much modern costume... What the hell? Oh, special costume limited. If we want to look at Chuck as a pretty much a member of the Dynamic Punch crew that actually makes use of accuracy buffs. Yeah, +6 accuracy here, +4 attack. Chuck actually goes for just direct damage. And honestly... is just, I would say, pretty much just better than Costume Guzma. I honestly would, because he can buff his physical moves next by himself anyway, and he's got an actual multiplier confusion synergy here. I mean, I honestly just, I think Chuck could definitely just be considered better than Guzma. There is a world for sure. Probably, honestly, I think he just straight up is. Anyway. Tenacity 3 for the missing. Again, he wants to miss, get physical moves next, use Dynamic Punch, and you could definitely play around that for some fun, for sure. I could definitely see some good usage in the Gauntlet of, like, bar skipping with this method. I mean, that could be good, but also at the same time, you got to deal with all of his other effects, right? And more so downsides than anything. Super Sinker, extra, same thing as Hilda, right? I mean, if you want to use him for, like, fighting 3v3 or something like that in the damage challenge, Super Effective next is going to be nice. Or, like, the Ultimate Battle versus... not Nolan, Palmer, there we go. He might be good with that. I'm not sure. I haven't seen Guzma fight Palmer. I'm sure there's a run somewhere, someplace, but for the most part, I mean, it's going to be mostly useful in like damage challenge champion stadium area. Again, mostly mostly damage challenge if you lack better options, which I don't think you do, honestly. Victory lap, charging engage by 2 when it knocks down an opponent with the move, you know, because you want to OHKO with that dynamic punch or whatever. Sure. So that's his base kit. It's really not great. I mean, physical moves next just to boost his dynamic punch, which is missing a lot of the time anyway, is not good because you make up. The game tries to say, like, oh, you missed 3 attacks, so you did 0 damage for 3 turns, but your last attack had +9 physical moves next and did a ton of damage. Even though it would probably be better and more consistent to actually just use Dynamic Punch and have it not miss 3 to 4 times in a row. That's kind of like where this gimmick goes out the window. But again, it can still get like good usage out of like maybe bar skipping in a legendary gauntlet, or maybe you can actually use it in like the damage challenge and just miss a couple times for the extra physical moves next to end off with one last big strong dynamic punch or something like that. Like I could see that being useful because it could be a pretty fast animation to just miss dynamic punch, but also you got to have the gauge for it, which is probably another big issue of his. His stats are good, 414 attack, 300 speed's not fantastic, but I mean, it could be worse for sure. 188 defense is similarly bad to Hilda's, and he can't even buff his. He actively debuffs them, so that's great. And 716 HP, nothing crazy either. So his stats are definitely like average low end, I would say, for stats. But I mean that comes with the territory of being older, honestly. Anyway, looking at his moves, he's got Fuzzy Strike, his grid. He's got Fuzzy Strike 5 and Haymaker. This actually enables his Sync Nuke. And again, that's what makes it pretty strong. Confusion and attack buffs, that's not hard to get. Confusion from the Dynamic Punch. You have to actually land the Dynamic Punch, though. And also, that's probably what is taking away his damage challenge prowess, is the fact that he needs Confusion, which is one of the worst, definitely one of the worst status changes to need in the damage challenge because of how much time it takes when the enemies actually use a move while confused. So, that's not very fun. That's actively annoying. Dynamic Punch Confusion Synergy, you want to try and power this move up as much as possible. He's also got Super Duper Effective 1 to do the same thing, again, if you are on type. So, if you really want to try and maximize Dynamic Punch damage, these are your tiles to do so. I really think they should have had bigger multipliers, honestly. At least in the modern day, but I mean, back then it was fine, but in the modern day, you definitely would want higher level damage. And the funny thing with this guy releasing is that he wasn't even better than Diantha, or like you couldn't really even make the argument. Like Diantha was single target focused, sure, but at least her DPS was actually consistent and just stronger than Guzma's. Like she actually hit every single turn, and even if Guzma missed a few times and hit one attack, over the course of those 3 turns, Diantha accumulated more damage than Guzma would have over that one attack. So they released these characters at the same time too. It's fun to consider. Only thing that Guzma had over Diantha was the fact that he was AoE, because he's a striker. So, yeah. Anyway. Other than that, he's got super victory, so a lot of methods of applying super effective next, which could be good. Again, if you're fighting on-type content, Guzma's going to be fine for the most part. I'm not really sure how well not sure how he does against Palmer's Ultimate Battle, but I can only imagine with the right partners, or like the OP enough partners, he'll be able to actually beat the stage. So, hey, go for it. I'm sure he'll be fine. Overall, I mean, my biggest issue with this character, also his accuracy ceiling. His accuracy cannot be raised. So if you want to prevent him from actually buffing his accuracy, if you want to really hone in on this gimmick, you can do that. I love that. And he's also got Sync Freebie. I think Sync Freebie is nice, and also Consolation Prize is nice for gauge. He's got pretty decent gauge management that way, but also his lack of speed buffing, his speed stat not being great, and the fact that missing is a very short animation, so he's using a lot of gauge. And also the fact that his other damaging option, Hammer-Arm, actually debuffs his speed, kind of mitigates that fact a lot. And he has no method of healing, I guess, right? Like, he doesn't have a way to heal. He doesn't have a way to buff his defenses, considering he actively debuffs them. That means that he doesn't really have a lot of... He's really just damage-focused only, and even then, he's not really excellent in that role. So, that does suck for him, but... Hey, whatever. Well, what can you do? Can he solo Legendary Arena? He can probably solo Latios, right? He can probably solo Latios. Ooh, no he cannot. Ooh, poor guy. I can imagine him just for being on-type could be a good option for any, like, Registeel duo, as long as you can, work with Registeel's gimmicks. Anyway, we'll end off with the last character here, my personal favorite costume, Jasmine. She was the only one I actually pulled on their initial release. And I love her, yes, I love this character. This grid is from Oh god, I'm stretching. This grid is from one of the duos with Event Blue for her versus Latias, so feel free to take that. This was made by Naomi, so again, pick that up if you want to. But whatever. I think it was actually, yeah, I think so. Anyway, whatever. Moving on. So Jasmine is a support character, and a lot of her supportive abilities have been outdated outside of the like Legendary Gauntlet and Champion Stadium areas. In those game modes, she's still good for sure, but outside of those game modes, you don't really want to run her for like her unique abilities. You want to run her mostly because you just want to run Jasmine. I mean, at least that's my opinion on the matter. Absorb is good, pretty decent healing, especially in like, okay, I know it's, hear me out. A lot of Ultimate Battles don't have defensive stats that much. Okay, they do, but they've got HP. They don't have, like, strength as in Champion Stadium strength. So it's the point of where a lot of supports actually do a couple thousand damage on some of their attack moves, just by, you know, passing turns, right? They do like 2, 3, 4,000 damage or something on one of their damaging moves when they've got a few sync buffs. And I honestly don't think Jasmine's going to be much of an exception. I mean, obviously Absorb is a low power move, but if she can even do like a few hundred damage on it, then she's healing up a good bit of HP. I mean, it restores her HP, and it's pretty good. Looking at her defensive stats, 400 special defense is really good. I mean, this really shuts down a good few stages that can pretty much attack with just special attacking moves. That really makes Jasmine look pretty good. She's got 252 defense, which is a lot less good. But if you are trying to really hone in on attacking or fighting like special attacking enemies, then Jasmine's pretty good for handling that job, just because again, her special defense is good, and also the fact she can buff special defense with her trainer move here. Her special attack is not that great, so sadly, again, Absorb, you know, you're going to have to really build a few sync buffs to be able to do a lot of damage with that, or enough damage, rather, for her healing to be, like, really noticeable. She does have Flash Cannon. That's something. 742 HP as well here. Not too crazy of an HP stat, but definitely serviceable, and speed is not great, but it's Celestial, it's pretty slow. Jasmine was mostly focused on buffing special attack, special defense, and crit back when she released, while also being able to debuff special defense with Mind Games 4 on Absorb, and also Honor Roll 9, I guess, on Flash Cannon, because it already has that 10% chance to debuff special defense, right? That was her big focus. She's also got healing here with Extra Gen All, and that's kind of her main form of healing here as well, for the whole team, really. Extra Gen All providing gradual healing to all allies, Absorb for healing herself, and a few other abilities in the grid like Team Trash Tank, providing healing at a 30% chance whenever they get hit. Obviously, she's definitely pretty much aged as a support, right? I mean, for modern content like an Ultimate Battle or something like that, Jasmine's obviously gonna be used just because you mostly want to use her, or you could want to use her in like a double support setting with a support that's actually like dedicated to providing probably physical defensive ability and also like potions, just probably better healing that way. But outside of that, I still do think Jasmine's got good capabilities with her special defense buffs and her healing, because you can pretty effectively shut down a lot of stages or a lot of special attacking stages if you want to pair her with a special attack debuffer. Again, I was looking into a setup with Jasmine and Event Blue where they're able to really effectively take on Latias. Again, this is made by Naomi, because of Blue's ability to debuff attack here with Swift, Jasmine's ability to provide special defense buffs, and also the fact that Latias is pretty specially oriented for the most part, outside of a few things like the last part Earthquake and a few other attacks, and also like the Flygon side, but you know, whatever. They're able to really cover things in a pretty cheap and effective way as well, so that's very, very good. And again, just Jasmine's longevity in like a Legendary Gauntlet scenario is good. Her Absorb healing, her Extra Gen All healing, and Team Trash Tank healing provides a lot of tick healing with her already pretty good special defensive stats. And in base, she's got Team Sharp Entry 1, Group Morale Boost 9, and Safety Net, special attack buffs, crit buffs on just on entry, but she also provides +1 crit on her trainer move here for max crit, and Safety Net here providing endurance to all allies. That can be really, really useful for surviving some potential KO attacks. Very, very strong. So, very focused on buffing special defense here, special attack every time they pretty much just use a trainer move, right? So you've got 4 instances of that here with Extra Gen All and the Steal Yourselves trainer move, and buffing crit by max with Team Sharp Entry plus the 2 uses of the trainer move here. Not too bad for sure. But again, this is a support that's really, really aged. She does not have modern abilities like Rebuff or potion, not necessarily even a modern ability, but she doesn't have like potions or whatever, or crazy debuffs like attack and special attack or stuff like that. She does have special defense, which is pretty good for her time, which is why you could really consider her to be a good support back then, because she was pretty good at enhancing a lot of special attackers while also being good defensively, at least especially on the special side. She's got Mind Games 4 again on Absorb, or Flash Cannon on roll 9, depending on if you wanted guaranteed debuffs for the cost of gauge, or if you wanted to go for those 50-50 debuffs at the cost of only 1 gauge. That was pretty much up to the user. And of course, you could pick up Absorb, Gauge, Refresh 9 as well to help very effectively manage Gauge, where she uses effectively none, and it was all upon your allies and how much they used, which is good because she's got very low speed. That's one thing that she does not cover very well, other than the physical side of things, is the speed stat. She doesn't really buff speed at all, so having the way to actually mitigate that is pretty good for her. And she's still got other abilities here, like Training Move all ramped up, being able to buff her special attack for the whole team's special attack pretty well. This makes it faster, right? You don't have to wait a lot of turns to be able to actually have special attack at a serviceable area, like +4, +5, +6. You can do that within 2 or 3 turns, which is obviously useful. She's got Flash Cannon on roll 9 here again. 2 nodes of Flash Cannon, Gauge Refresh, just to help with that gauge stuff. Team Trash Tank 2, giving you 30% chance to restore HP of all allies when hit by an attack move. You know, like Rika and Arcsuit Steven, but theirs is obviously guaranteed. Sadly, Jasmine's is not, but still, getting a few procs of that every, few turns or whatever is still really good for having the team's tick healing be really, really strong. Again, combined with Extra Gen All, where you're healing every attack you take. Jasmine, I still do think, is very focused on the gauntlet now, just because of how much she's aged. I do think, of course, you could get usage out of her in other game modes as well, but that's more so because you want to, and less so because she's super effective at the role. But, again, if you want to make her work, you can. It's not like it's impossible to do, for sure. Sadly, not really too much of a battle rally unit, simply because she doesn't have an EX role, but if you just need a support to take up a slot, if you don't have any other boosted character, then Jasmine can also do well in that role. It's not bad. Overall, yeah, I think that's about all I've got for these lists of characters. Yeah, that's about all I can say. I think the banner's definitely not worth going for, especially because of the rates, but I do think that the character list individually is not the worst. I mean, Diantha's still really good. Jasmine's good for the gauntlet for sure. Hilda's pretty decent for a but for an older striker. Guzma's really the only one that's like, the odd one out, or like the not super great one anymore, but you can still make him work in some content if you really, really wanted to try, so feel free. Yeah, whatever. I wish they would start giving upgrades to these old units, like old seasonals and special costumes and varieties probably, Not many of them are super old yet, but I wish they would just do it, please. Whatever, yeah. See you later. Hope you all enjoyed. Good luck in your summons if you're summoning. Good luck in your skipping. Yeah, put in feedback for giving these characters buffs, like grids and EX rolls and whatnot. Yeah, peace.